Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the practice for the production function. So we're going to use some of the data from the simulation that we did in class, and then a little bit of practice with some other data. So let's get started. Okay, so this data set that I have here, that I've written out the total product values from our simulation, is from a simulation set of data from a few years ago where the numbers turned out actually fairly nice. And it actually was our world record because they made the most number of paper chain links. If you have your own data set, you should use that and calculate the values for it. But if you didn't do the simulation, or you didn't have the numbers down or something, these numbers will do in a pinch. So our simulation, we have a certain number of workers, and then every time we added a worker, we got a little bit more total product, right? So that's what data is telling us. And then we have some information at the top, which is $12 per worker, $10 for the fixed inputs, right? So these are the scissors and the stapler, and then this is our revenue that we get every time we sell a paper chain link. Now, the marginal product of the 0th kind of worker doesn't exist, but the first worker gave us 10, and the second worker gave us 8. Oops, sorry about that. It's just 10 to 18, and now 6, 5, 1, and then this 6th worker, there was nothing wrong with them personally. It was just that by the time they had 6 workers, they were all crowded around one little table, and they actually couldn't produce quite as many links. They got all mixed up. Now, then the next columns here are really just calculating some costs, and you can see here that these are abbreviations. And what I do in class is I kind of encourage you to think about what might that abbreviation stand for. If we're talking about cost, well, the F stands for fixed cost, and well, what would that be? That'd be $10. The cool thing about fixed cost is it's fixed. It's $10 throughout the entire range, because once you've paid for your fixed inputs, you've paid for them. So it doesn't matter how many inputs you have or how many outputs you make, your fixed cost remains the same. Now, variable cost is going to depend on your variable inputs. And in this case, our variable inputs were the number of workers. So with 0 workers, we had 0 variable cost. With 1 worker, we had 12. 2 workers, we had 24. 3 workers, we had 36. 4 workers, we had 48. 5 workers, we had 60. And 6 workers, we had 72. And that's because each worker cost us $12. And then TC stands for total cost. And so that's fairly easy. That's just adding together our 2 types of costs, which are fixed and variable. So we know that if we're not producing anything, then the total cost is equal to the fixed cost. That's a really useful thing to know. Lots of test questions ask about it. But we just know that at 0 level of output, then our fixed cost is our total cost. Now our next one, 22, 34, 46, 58, 70, and 82. And Bob's your uncle. That's the only part of this page that we're going to do with 3.1 production function practice, because we're just doing some transformations here and looking at like what those costs look like. If you need abbreviations help for this table, please come and ask me for those. Now, number 2 says label range of paper chain workers with increasing, diminishing, and negative marginal returns. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Increasing marginal returns, well, that's actually not happening with these. So we're going to actually say with this first one, this is stage 1, right? So we're going to actually kind of say here, stage 1. And then diminishing marginal returns, that's where we're seeing marginal product is less than the previous one. And so 10 is bigger than non-existing. 8 is, though, less than 10. So it does begin with the second worker. We would say that diminishing marginal returns begins with the second worker, and it continues through the 5th worker. So we would say these are stage 2, right? And so we have stage 2. And then last, negative marginal returns, that's going to be the one where we have negative marginal product, stage 3. So I've gone ahead and taken care of labeling our ranges in the data table. Now let's recalculate some numbers over here on the right-hand side, and that's going to be pretty much it for this practice set. Again, just a little bit more practice with marginal product, 0 to 10, 15, 20. So here we see marginal product is increasing for the first few workers, and then eventually it will start to diminish, 15, 5, and then here we have a negative 2. So what's the cause of increasing marginal returns? This was something that you think about, why would these first few workers, as we get all the way up to here, why would each of these workers generate more units? Well, it's because of specialization, right? Specialization, and we want to be clear here, of our variable inputs. And so our workers begin to say, okay, your job is to cut the paper. Your job is to fold the paper. Your job is to turn it into a little loop. And the 4th kid's job is to staple it. So everybody gets a specialized job, and that's all they do. Or fold, cut. That's all they do. They specialize, and their variable inputs are what's doing that. Now, over here, with which worker do the diminishing marginal returns to labor begin? And we would say that that is with quantity worker 4 because, right, we would say Q3 MP is equal to 20, while Q4 MP is equal to 15. And we know that, like, here was where that first worker was, where it began to diminish. What's the cause of this diminishing marginal returns? And that's simply because we have fixed inputs, right? We could actually say we have fixed inputs, and as we increase variable inputs, we see diminishing marginal returns. Diminishing marginal returns. And so another way to think about diminishing marginal returns is just saying, why do we have diminishing marginal product? Because we have fixed inputs. Some of our inputs are fixed. That's why. As we increase, we have some, maybe I should say here, we have some fixed inputs. And as we increase variable inputs, we're going to see diminishing marginal returns. So hopefully this helped you with the basics of the production function. I'll see you next time.